morning. You're listening to Drinking Socially, the official Untappd podcast.
Your weekly look to what's happening in the Untappd community and the world of beer.
Speaking of the world of beer, this episode is brought to you by the Untappd Beer Fest. We're coming to San Diego's Petco Park at Gallagher Square October 1st and 2nd, and we're bringing more than 70 amazing breweries with us, including Drecker, El Segundo, Pizza Pour, Wren House, Single Cut, Dank House, and VIP access includes beers from Horse Aged Ales, Tripping Animals, and Vitamin C, to name a few. VIP and general admission tickets are still available. Check out festivals.untappd.com for more information and use the coupon code DSPodcast, just like Drinking Socially podcast, for $10 off VIP tickets and $5 off your general admission. Again, that's coupon code DSPodcast. Hit the caps lock button, slam in the coupon code, save a few bucks, and we'll see you in America's finest city with some world's finest beers October 1st and 2nd. Also, while you're listening, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Harrison, we got a great episode coming up. What's on the agenda today?
Move over, birthdays. See you later, Christmas. You can just kick rocks, Halloween. There's a new celebration in town. It's unofficial Untappd 4.0 day. Okay, all right. Admittedly, the name needs some work. We'll get there. But guys and gals, have you heard Untappd 4.0 is out of the beta and into the real world in all its dark mode containing glory? Hip hip hooray! So years of work went into this update. We're excited to have on today's show the man behind the magic, a familiar voice to many of you, the one and only Kyle Roderick, original Drinking Socially host, and he also happens to be the executive vice president of product at Untappd as well. He's going to talk to us about what's going on behind the curtain, what this means for Untappd's future, if he's a dog or a cat person. Plus, we're going to be featuring one of Kyle's favorite badges. It's tough to pick one. You don't know Brett, and dropping not one, not two, but 3 new beers on the Drinking Socially badge to put the icing on the cake of this party. We may even virtually fight to the death about who the greatest Brett ever is. Will there be time? Will Jon find the bear snacks I hid in his dresser? Will Kyle tell us a secret to how he makes his voice sound so smooth? Only one way to find out, and you're doing it right now. So take it away, Jon.
I'm really concerned about the Bears in Eastern North Carolina at this point.
Don't worry about it.
Really quick, before we get Kyle on the show, the badge we're featuring today is called You Don't Know Brett. There's a lot I want to unpack there, but when you unlock this badge, Untappd will ask, we're looking for Brett. Have you seen him? Looks like you have. That's an American wild ale and a Brett beer. Very popular nowadays, so Brett can't hide any longer, much like the bear bait in my dresser. You have to check in 5 beers with the style of Brett beer, American wild ale, or IPA Brett. 5 beers that have to be listed as that style on Untappd. So we're going to talk more about Brett in a minute, but right now it's been, if you're listening to this episode on the day it was released, 924 days since we were blessed with the smooth, buttery sounds of Untappd's VP of everything, Kyle Roderick. Welcome back to the show, Kyle.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm very happy to be here. I didn't know that you would be introing me this way. I feel like I needed to maybe go to the nearest party store, get a helium balloon, and just absolutely dupe both of you into it's. Also, I've never sucked helium in my life, but I would do it the first time here on this show just to troll both of you on that. And I didn't. I should have prepped that. Apologies.
No, next time.
I don't think helium would affect your voice at all, Kyle. I think you're right.
That's
It
right.
would just go deeper. It would end up deeper. Yeah.
Right. Make the balloon bigger somehow.
Ah, man.
Check it out.
Well, I'm really glad to be here, and you all have been doing a smashing job hosting the podcast since Tim and I passed the proverbial baton to both of you. So thank you Thank you again for continuing this. You keep the same intro. It's an incredible podcast. I'm very glad to be here.
That's right. A little bit of flashbacks there. It's a lot of fun, a lot of late nights, a lot of drinking, but someone's got to do it. And here we are.
And speaking of drinking, I mean, not to be a downer here, but we have work to do, gents.
We do.
3 American wild beers to get through. And Kyle, as the guest on the show, and I'm really excited to ask you what beer you brought. And if you're not watching on YouTube, this would be a great time to pivot, because I think Kyle's beer is going to be really exciting.
We may not need confetti. It may be in that bottle.
That's right. This liquid confetti that's about to come pouring out of the top of this bottle. I have with me Stone's Enjoy After 12, 26, 15 Brett IPA,
Wow.
7% ABV. This is the oldest beer in my cellar. Second edition. So I'm guessing that this is maybe the second Enjoy After.
Correct. Stone
obviously very well known for their Enjoy Before series, and they continue to roll out with their Enjoy Before series. Enjoy After is sort of a play off of that. It's, I believe, and again, Stone, get at me in the comments in the mentions below. It's their Enjoy series beer, the IPA, but with Brettanomyces. And so that's the wild ale twist that we have here. Recommended aging on this is 1 year. So I got this in 2014. The year is 2021 here, and so I'm excited to open this one up. Rumor is, reading the comments on Untappd.com and over in the Untappd app, this is exploding on people. Some are reporting that the being spiked with Brett here is actually retaining a lot of the carbonation. Okay. Some are saying that it isn't. I haven't. I was telling you all before the show started, I have not had this beer under probably 60 or 70 degrees in the many, many years that I've had this. And so the only time that's ever been chilled is for serving right now for this show. And so I'm excited to open it.
So if anything, yes, that Brett's been happy eating away at making more carbonation.
I hope so.
So this may be very carbonated, or it may make no noise when you open it. That's the dice you roll with aging anything. But I'm excited to bear witness to this and to see what happens.
Am I doing that now? Am I doing this now?
You can start on what. Yeah, usually we'd have
John away from everything.
I've heard the moment you take the cage off is what? Ow! Just like just like that.
Oh no, Kyle needs a new sink now.
Kyle needs new everything.
Wow, that scared me so much.
But you called it. You money in the bank right there, man.
Not bad. Not just one brawny. Doing okay.
Wow,
professional.
Great statement for brawny.
The
beer that opens itself.
That's amazing. The beer that, right. Wow.
So question to both of you. Is this a proper glassware podcast?
We've talked about proper glassware, but we've also drank right from the can.
I think, exactly right. So
I don't think I'm going to go into this 1 pint 9.36 fluid ounces bottle on its own. So I did bring glassware, and I'm unsure of what to choose here. Tiku, obviously the hop culture, beer culture collab. Tiku, nice. Got that. Unbranded tulip,
nice,
maybe, or slightly strange gold rimmed sort of first anniversary tall glass. I don't know the name for this one, but
it's the expensive glass that my wife wants to buy every day.
Like a beer flute. But
flute. Let's go beer flute.
Beer flute. It's probably not, but that's okay. So I think it's dealer's choice here. And even if I nerd out slightly, it's aged, it's Brett, but it's also an IPA. any of those glasses work. Probably not out of the bottle though.
Maybe from the looks of that first smell, maybe you want to go with a glass that won't really allow you to waft in the aroma.
Right.
That might take Biku off the table.
Yeah. I think, I like whatever, unbranded tulip. There's really no wrong way to do it, I think. But John makes a good point. Let that thing open up a bit. It's got a lot of that. Look at that. It looks, obviously great carbonation, and it looks beautiful.
It's really not bad. It smells just delightful, just wonderful, just incredible.
Like time in a bottle, as Jim Croce would say. That's amazing. All right, let's let you have some time with that. John, let's talk about your beer, and then we'll kind of do a round of first sips. I don't want you to wait until Kyle passes out.
There's no oxygen left in that room anymore. The beer I'm bringing is a little less ceremonious and much less old, but from Wicked Weed, their Plains Dealer, part of their Canvas series. And this is a two-part beer for me. One, Wicked Weed, when I was growing up, kind of introduced me to American Wilds, and there's a lot of nostalgia there for the beers they were allowing me to taste that I might not have found otherwise. And the second part is I needed to find an American Wild style on Untappd to qualify for this badge. And the stores are full of sour beers and fruited sours and Berliners, but it was really hard to find one. So I went to the old standby Wicked Weed and I found Plains Dealer, part of their Canvas series. This is a bourbon barrel aged sour fermented with lemon zest.
Ooh.
So I'm either going to really enjoy this or I'm going to say a lot of things like interesting and a lot going on with this beer.
This episode brought to you by Lysol.
Right, exactly. Let's hope not. My goodness. But that's, you're right, John. Great call out on Wicked Weed. They really were kind of the especially in North Carolina, whenever was talking about American Wild Ales online, you could go and find Wicked Weed's offering relatively easily. Look at that. Oh,
and branded pint. Very good.
That's always a safe fallback if you're unsure of what glassware to use. A general pint glass will suffice, and if it has the same brewery logo on it, I think that supersedes any sort of glassware recommendations. I'm going to let this breathe. It smells exactly like you might expect a zesty, bourbony, sour to smell. Harrison, what do you got?
Do it. What do I have? I stayed in North Carolina as well. Today I'm going to be enjoying from Zillicoa Beer Company their American Wild Ale, which is called American Wild Ale.
You got lucky.
Pretty straightforward. I did. I was prepared for aged on lemon zest or barrel aged and whatever. This is foeder aged, but American Wild Ale, 7.4%. Only 350 check-ins on Untappd, 340 of them in the month of August. So really a new beer for Zillicoa, which is pretty cool to get my hands on. I didn't know that. With a name like American Wild Ale, I figured it'd be something they kind of brewed all the time. But it's a mixed culture, wild captured with Woodfin native yeast, 100% re-fermented in the bottle. The notes from the brewery: complex, oak forward, foeder fermented, mixed culture beer. So excited to try this. Also, it's a little bit newer, but always open any bottle with a healthy respect for what could happen. Ooh, man. All right. I'm gonna
always the first smell of opening any kind of wild ale is just amazing.
I joked earlier, but it really does feel like you're drinking, right? This is what beer used to taste like, and still does. Like, if you just made a beer in Belgium and let it sit outside, if you open fermented it, this is what you would get without even having to harvest anything really yourself. But glad they are going the extra mile and finding some local yeast to prop this guy up. Ooh, it's very bubbly. That's another nice thing about kind of bottle conditioned beers. The bubbles are loud. It's like a bunch of Rice Krispies in here yelling at me, snapping and crackling. Ooh, all right, Kyle, have you had a sip? Let's get back.
I haven't. So I need to dig in. One of the things I think is most interesting too is that, especially for the American Brett beer and wild ales in general, like even craftbeer.com is like, I don't know where to put this. Right. It's all the way left-hand side pale on color, all the way right-hand side on dark on color. And it spans the full spectrum on color, on bitterness, and on ABV. And it's just one of those really kind of, pardon the pun, untapped styles that I feel like I don't have enough of. I'm only on level 7 on You Don't Know Brett. So let's jump into this.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited.
Great carbonate. Honestly, yes. Great carbonation still from this. There was a lot of head on it when I first poured it, but it's really dissipated quite nicely, and it's been retained this whole time. Fluffy, like kind of, very aerated now that I've kind of sat on it a little while.
Sure.
I think maybe chilling the bottle a little more may have done it more justice. It's a little barnyard funk at the moment, given it's a little warmer in the glass. There
you go. That's kind of what, and that's not unexpected for this style.
But you absolutely, especially given that it's a Brett IPA, like hop character in this is totally present. Like I get a lot of weird, complex, umami, like grassy things happening. And it's kind of tastes like a full meal. Or like a McDonald's cheeseburger you left out for multiple years, then tried it.
Right. All right.
It's a fun experiment that I want.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's pretty good. The thing is, you hype something up for years and years and years, and it's the oldest thing. And now there's another oldest thing somewhere in my cellar, but you think that it's going to be kind of, I don't know, either really, really good or really, really bad, or somewhere in between. I feel like I kind of landed somewhere in the, it's actually not bad. It's fairly tame for what I expected, but also like really complex. So I'm enjoying it pretty thoroughly. John, have you gone into yours yet?
I'm probably 3 sips in now.
Smart.
And I have a bottled on date of 2017. So still technically an old beer, but with Kyle on the show, I can't claim. I don't even want to talk about how old it is.
I think
a little bit though.
That is definitely before I stopped doing the show. So at least, you've got that beat. The beer just needs to at least have been made before I stopped hosting duties.
This was in the bottle when Kyle was still leading the charge at Drinking Socially.
That's right.
PlayStation 3 was still on most of our shelves. But in terms of flavor for this beer, I think I love what Kyle did, kind of walking through the taste as a journey, not necessarily breaking it down objectively. And I feel like with the wild beer, like I'm tasting something that's alive. It's not like I'm comparing an aged cheddar. This is a funky blue that is telling me much more than just a cheese. The yeast is giving me a lot of flavor. The lemon has survived, but the overwhelming, I think if I could summarize this in a sentence, this beer tastes like walking through a warm gym locker room, holding a lemon while drinking bourbon.
So like any Rotary club, that's just happening across the country now at different country clubs and
good. I don't mean that in a bad way. Obviously, everyone wants to go walk through a warm gym locker room, but it tastes good.
How did I end up here? What was the night before that ended me in this situation right now in this moment?
Right, head into the sauna with a little hair of the dog. We've all been there before. A little bourbon in your glass and a lemon just to wake you up. Help purify the senses and the soul. This is great.
Is that pretty fresh in the bottle you opened?
It is, yeah. And so it doesn't. If it has a bottle on date, I'm missing it. But like I said, I mean, they could have aged this for as long as they wanted to. But in terms of being out in the world, it's only been about a month and a half. All North Carolina ingredients: hops, North Carolina, rye, North Carolina, the wheat, the barley, or the barley. Like I said, this native yeast to Woodfin, NC, where they are brewing, where they're based out of. And in terms of flavor, right, so this is coming out hot. It's got that kind of classic, it's almost apple cider vinegar, but not with that horrible, like that back of your tongue vinegarness that apple cider vinegar brings to it. It's more the apple that's a little bit tart. That's what I'm getting right away, with some kind of grape notes in there too. But it's so straightforward, because again, it's just, there is no fruit. It's not aged on anything. It's Kyle doing a temperature check right now. That's good.
65.5. Just a really nice 65.5.
Nice. Beautiful. That's when the horse flavors really come out. Anything above 64.5, it's all horse all the way down. But that's, yeah, this is tasting pretty fresh. I wish I grabbed a second bottle, because it'd probably be cool in 7 years. But now I won't know.
Here's an unplanned question that I want to ask, especially Kyle, and honestly, especially you too, Harrison, and everyone who happens to be drinking along with us. What if you could have access to any food item in your imagination? What would you bring to pair with the beers that you're drinking right now, Kyle?
Definitely like a pork carnitas tacos. Just like really fatty, juicy pork carnitas tacos, but with like the bright acidity of a either some kind of pickled red onion or something like that. I think this beer would cut that very well. The acidity and the spice and the funk that this has would go really, really well with something like that.
Wow. Bravo. Okay. I'll go.
Harrison?
Sure. So I'm going to get really specific, because it actually jumped into my head when I had that first sip of, I wish I had. And it's called Coastal Cheddar. It may be at a lot of places, but I know Costco has it. That's where I get my 12-pound block of it every other month. It's an aged cheddar. It's a cave aged cheddar. It's one of the crumbly cheddars. It's got all the little crystallizations in there.
Yeah.
It makes wet when I eat, but same kind of idea as Kyle. It's fatty, but the acidity of the beer would just probably nicely slice right through it. So,
well, in beer and cheese pairings are not something you see a lot of folks talking about or doing. And I'll agree with you, Harrison, like the crystallization of an aged cheese like that is really important, especially when you're talking about these like kind of really effervescent, bright, funky beers. They go just perfectly together. A Belgian quad or a triple would also do very well with a cheese just like that. So sounds really good. 12 pounds though, can't get behind that.
you gotta get a really industrial sized diesel powered grater, but it's really efficient.
That's right. We just use the axe. It's the same axe we use for the 20-pound sausage. All right, John, what about you? Let's go. I'll put you on the spot as well. Food.
Oh, no, we're out of time.
Beer. Get out of here. Come on. You got something great. I know you do.
I want blue cheese after drinking this beer. I mean, I think
with the lemon, really, I'm surprised to hear that.
Well, okay, so follow me down this journey, right? We're making a salad and there's fruit in it, maybe strawberry, a little lemon zest, some bitter greens like an arugula or a watercress maybe. And then you've got these little tiny blue cheese nugs that you pick up in there. So you get the sweet, the fruit, and then that funk comes through. But now let's turn that into a crispy flatbread pizza. That's what I want to eat with this beer.
Wow. The old salad to pizza flip. That's the one my doctor says you got to stop doing, but but I'm with you. I'm with you, John.
I'm going to recommend, John. I'm going to recommend then. Yeah, like you'll get some fattiness with the cheese as well if you're putting it on pizza. I'm going to recommend figs, balsamic.
I was thinking figs as well. I don't know why I was thinking figs.
Gorgonzola, figs, balsamic pizza to die for. Just next level. Great. Also great with this. I would definitely take that.
Yeah, that sounds like an incredible pizza. Yep. You could eat it for breakfast and then probably have it for lunch and then carry it all the way through to dinner. And
I'm going to put you guys on the spot then.
Oh, good.
Cold pizza or hot pizza? Is there a recommendation both of you have?
Well, I'm of the camp of you never reheat pizza. You just can't. Once it's cold, and you're eating it cold. Yeah, you never reheat pizza. You can do it physically, but it's more of a bylaw of my life.
Thermodynamic pizza law.
Right. Well, I've never done it, so I'm assuming you can do it. But in terms of, and just by the nature of, a hot pizza not staying hot for too long, I probably had more cold pizza in my life than hot pizza. So I feel confident in speaking as an expert on cold pizza. Is one better than the other? I mean, it's tough to match a nice hot slice of pie, but that, as John said, that kind of next morning pizza, that's another special thing too. That's the best friend you need in the morning. Sometimes that cold slice of pizza saying it'll be okay in about 2 more slices, and then it is. So I'm going to say cold and surprise myself.
I will hands down go with hot. I've eaten way more cold pizza than hot.
Yeah.
I think cold hides some of the flavors from me. And when I'm eating a pizza, I want everything to be singing. And so for that reason, hot pizza, it's a rarity also. I would consider it a treat, even when you order pizza, right? And then they show up and you do the exchange and we trade for our pizza and I give you printed currency, whatever that may be worth to you. And then I set the pizza down and I pull up Netflix and 45 minutes later, I've decided to watch YouTube instead and the pizza's cold. Right. So hot pizza's a treat. And I think it gives the pizza its best chance to sing for me. So that's my pick.
Yeah.
Kyle, is there a definitive answer?
Yeah, no, John, sorry, you're wrong. So it's okay. It's fine. I assumed as much, but that's okay. It's all right. Well, I'll find some way to forgive you and move on. Just forget that this ever happened. But that's probably going to take a couple more of these Brett IPAs.
Got it. I'm sorry to let you down, but
it's all right. I'm excited to level this thing up, to be honest. The last time I had a beer that actually leveled this badge was Russian River's Instinction, their Sauvignon Blanc version of this. Very, very good beer as well. Just like super bright. It's also, a Brett beer, just barrel aged Pilsner, light, really light, but hides that like 8.25%. Just incredible.
Hats off to that.
Missing that.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I was looking through mine.
Series from Russian River is a barometer for the style, I think.
Yep, it is. And we actually pulled up the top beers that use it. So there have been 80,000 unlocks of this badge. You don't know Brett. Most of them, top 10, Russian River has 2 of them, Consecration and then Supplication, which are 2 of their more widely distributed American wild ales. Damnation, which is not a wild ale, it's a blonde. It's the one that's you kind of see the most. And of course, Blind Pig and Pliny's. But so Russian River comes up a lot here. New Glarus's Raspberry Tart. That's another one that you hear spoken about a lot as like New Glarus. That's like New Glarus's beer that people hunt down. Black Angel from Wicked Weed, John. So that's one that I've had. That's one that a lot of kind of people cut their teeth on, as well as Medora from Wicked Weed. That's in the top 10. Number 1, though, is from Crooked Stave. There's Sour Rosé, which I have not had, but 820 50 or so Untappd users. That was the highest or most checked in, beer that was used to unlock this badge the most, I should say. Above 80,000, which is pretty cool. So, yeah.
Also low overall in terms of
Right.
Badges that have been leveled on the service. So again, kind of if you're a badge chaser, like this is one of those that every beer that you have that qualifies you for this is going to taste different. I can guarantee it. It's it's the men's warehouse of badges.
You're right. It's tough. And I think to John's point earlier, I would say 10 years ago, everything was an American Wild Ale that was sour. But now you have fruited sours, you have Berliners, you have American breweries messing with Flanders Red, which does not qualify for this. So you've got that American Wild Ale was a great umbrella kind of category that had a lot of brewers go, oh, what is this? What else can I do with it? What are some similar styles? And now you can go to a grocery store and find a bunch of fruited sours. But I would argue that kind of 2010, which is when I had supplication the first time, was back in like 2010, 2011. That time period when sours were really and wild ales were exploding, that is why you can go to a grocery store and find fruited sours now, which is like a much easier way to create a very similar experience. You're not waiting months on a beer to rest on wood to get all this flavor. You can do it right in the kettle as you're making the beer, create a lot of these similar flavors. But I mean, at kind of point we're all making, the age, the time, it's something different in an American Wild Ale that is rested in wood and you kind of wait to drink it. It's hard to exactly duplicate that with like a kettle sour. So excited there are more sour beers than ever, but by kind of virtue of that, it is harder to find just an American Wild Ale. But we did it, and I'm happy we did because it's a style I don't have enough of, which leads me to my horrible admission that this beer will unlock level 1 of this badge for me.
No shame. Congratulations.
That's fantastic.
So excited you're all here for it. And my excuse is going to be what I just said. In 2010 and 2011, I drank a lot of American Wild Ales and I didn't have Untappd yet. So that's
it's almost like, Harrison, you need to become a supporter at untappd.com/supporter and backdate your check-ins because we support that now.
Here you go. Now we're learning things. You hear that, folks? Supporters
when
only.
you do that, Harrison, you need to take a photo of your beer journal that says the time and date in which you drank those.
I do need verification. Yeah, that's right. I do look at, I don't know if you knew this, Harrison. I look at every single check-in that comes in. I make sure that it happened, that it's something that's real. And so I will picture it didn't happen.
Got it. Picture didn't happen. Sadly, there are small ringed notebooks that have all the notes in them. I was that guy with the flashlight at the bar, writing in a notepad, looking at my beer in the dark.
Flashlight. Come on. We all know that dark mode at the bar is the new way to do things.
That was a beautiful segue, Kyle, proof positive that you found your home again. So yeah, is that now that I've messed up Kyle's segue, let's get to some questions for Untappd executive VP of everything. No, technically product, but I mean, almost anything you've touched at Untappd as you drink your beers, Kyle touched it first. That's probably what it says on his LinkedIn. So we've just launched Untappd.
I'm updating my business card live as you're talking, John. I just hope you know.
Perfect.
So many jokes that I'm keeping inside. Untappd's biggest update involved dark mode, and we got some questions about it. Untappd socially has a pretty active Facebook group. Untappd had some questions come through on social media. So I'll get started as we turn the spotlight on Kyle again, but we'll keep it sort of easy. Big fan of the podcast and Untappd. Andrew asks, Kyle, what's a better beer to celebrate the release of 4.0.0? A Belgian quad or a quad IPA?
This is tough. I've had maybe one quad IPA ever in my life. Do we have a definitive description of what we believe is a quad IPA here? Are we the triple IPA folks, or are we the, everything is a double IPA no matter what the ABV?
I think a quad IPA is a hoppy barley wine, but I don't know if that'll get you in trouble. I don't know if there's a definitive. I don't think the BJCP recognizes it as a thing, and that's a nerdy barometer, but it is what we kind of use.
I would say
I don't know.
Above 15% and hop, but I guess that is kind of a hop. But that's where I would put it in my head. Fortunately, you're right, Harrison. We don't have a definition for it yet properly.
Nope.
I think given that, the innovation and the amount of work that went into 4.0, this latest iteration, I should say the background for this is that the latest Untappd version is what we call a re-platform. It is taking all of the features that you know and love and working overtime to bring them back to the application, but by rewriting it from zero. Day one of the development of this application was 0 lines of code, and we're obviously at the launch of it. And so the work that goes into that, I think, lends itself maybe a little better to a Belgian quad, right? It's complex. There was more time and effort and complexity behind it. But I will say the quad IPA is like, just think of the fastest hot rod with the biggest wheels, the loudest motorcycle you've ever seen of beer. Like, that's definitely the quad IPA, the beer that lets you know that it also has a podcast and you should go check it out. That's the beer that I think, we're setting the foundations of with this version, to create kind of, the supercar version of Untappd in the future. This is laying the foundation for that. And so thanks to all the Belgian quads that have ever existed, I probably would celebrate with a quad IPA. It's the future. It's where we want to go with the app.
Ooh, that's a great answer.
I'll say as well, when we upload an application, it's a .ipa file. And so maybe there's that tie-in as well. Maybe a little too inside baseball, but it's fun.
Yeah, I like that. That's great. That's a thoughtful answer. All right, so we got another beer related question from Mel and Alicia from Work for Your Beer. If you have no follows, both online at Work for Your Beer on Instagram. They're great. They're hilarious. They put out awesome videos and made John and I do a workout live on Facebook last year. And John from that still hurts his back. He can't sit or stand. So
diabetes.
He's laying down now. Right. Didn't cure that, but they're still great. So they had a question for Kyle. They want to know, what was your gateway beer, aka the first beer that got you into beer? You can harken back and think to new beginnings, maybe take a peek on Untappd.
Yeah, it was probably around the same time that I joined Untappd, to be quite honest. It was Pyramid and their apricot ale, or apricot?
Yeah.
Apricot. What do you folks say?
It's apricot.
I guess that's right. I don't know now. I don't say it enough. I probably said
country club.
Just keep saying it.
Apricot. I don't know. I would just ask for the small yellow fruit, yellowish orange fruit, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the one where like you get the 6-pack, and that ale definitely stayed in my fridge probably way too long. But that was the beer that like really got me into, okay, I should probably like think about, I don't know, beer flavors or what I like. Do I have a preference? I'm frankly unsure, but definitely Pyramid's apricot ale was the one for me.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. That's a great way of thinking about it, right? It's everyone, whatever. We've shared our gateway stories here many times, but I think the point of it is it gets you to stop and think and go, wait, what was that? That was a beer? Not all beers taste kind of like a light Pilsnery thing. What else is out there? Yeah. It is that little spark in your brain that starts asking all these other questions, and then you find yourself right in line waiting to buy a beer in the rain. and you're like, how did I get here?
Well, and wheat beer is typically like kind of that gateway beer for a lot of folks getting into craft, and something with fruit would definitely catch my eye more than anything else. And so trying something like this, and Pyramid, right, up in the Bay Area of California, like Pyramid was next to Stone, maybe the only 6-pack of craft beer I could have gotten at that point. And so that was the wheat beer or the, a Brett IPA, 7%.
I'm going the other way.
Maybe. Right. Yeah. I who knows, John, I may not have been on this podcast at that point. I would have become a whiskey guy.
And now you're making me think that somebody should make a documentary about apricot beers. Now they changed the beer world, because you have apricot ale from Pyramid, you have Magic Hat number 9 that a lot of people credit as their gateway beer, and then mine is really Apricot Hop from Dogfish Head, which had the same kind of like, whoa, what is this? Is a bitter? There's fruit in it. What's happening? That's patent pending. We'll work on it. The Drinking Socially Apricot Beer podcast documentary coming to you in 2029. But funny how fruit, with funny fruit things. There's a joke there. I'm not smart enough to make it. All right, we have more questions. It's not my show. It's Kyle's show. Let me find this. Okay, so you just mentioned replatforming, and this is something that got me really excited. Just kind of thinking about Untappd is almost 11 years old, which is kind of crazy. So what was that like for you, kind of looking back at 11 years of the app, and then really 11 years of other apps, and where apps have gone and where technology is and how people gather information and stuff? I mean, we're kind of where the replatform is getting us kind of back to a new baseline, it sounds like, with obviously some amazing improvements, but it's really about the future. So to do that, to play for the future, you kind of have to think and predict the future almost. So I imagine going through this, there were like inspiration or other apps you looked at, or some kind of exploratory process where you were like, what do we really want this to look like 11 years from now? And try to at least give yourself the best chance possible to follow that road. So if you could just kind of take us through that a little bit, that whole process, and how you kind of do that.
I will say definitively, we would not be at the point that we're at today with the application, both with its success as well as with its design and its feature set, without Greg being at the helm of and being the sole developer on that project for so long. Like we learned so much. It's actually really wild, pardon the pun again, to go back and look at what the application looked like in 2012, let alone 2018, and how far we've come, what we've learned in the meantime. And all of that comes to a head when you do something like a replatform and move to either a new language or you're rewriting certain parts of the application, because you're reconsidering, like, why did we make these decisions? Why are things the way that they are? And as much as we wanted to maybe innovate and change things in the moment when we were going from the older version to today's version that's available to everyone, we wanted to make sure that what we were building was solid. We were not changing things up so much that you had to relearn how to do core things inside of the application. And so what you see in the app in 4.0 shouldn't feel unfamiliar. It should be, in all honesty, as close to the latest version that you had used of the app as possible, as much as we could possibly get. Now, it's going to be missing some features, and we've talked about a couple of those in the product updates blog, updates.untappd.com. You can go take a look there, see what's missing currently, what we really wanted to bring to the application, but didn't make it to the final cut in that release version, but we're hoping to bring to future versions very, very soon. And so that's really kind of like where we sit today. It's, like I mentioned, foundational. We feel like the team now that we have behind it, that we've grown over time over the last couple of years, is going to be able to innovate and support and build a really interesting app for the craft beer community that is going to really push the boundaries and hopefully be something that folks really enjoy. We build this application for the Untappd community. We build this so that, you know, you can find the next craft beer, so that you finding your new apricot ale will learn more about craft beer. To speak to a little bit about like the app landscape, Harrison, and what you were talking about in terms of like inspiration from other applications and where we might be drawing inspiration, what we might want to do in the future. I would say probably one of the most inspiring and also like competitive places for us, as well as like a really interesting barometer for where the craft beer community is today, is Instagram. And over the last couple of years, Instagram's really been that place where, like, it doesn't matter what hops are in it. It doesn't matter how long it took to brew, or frankly, who brewed it, for that matter. What matters is, what does it look like? What does the packaging look like? Is this something that other people are liking? And that has drawn in other folks to learn about beer and then actually try those beers and see whether or not that thing that they saw was something that they actually liked. And that's also bringing in a lot of new faces to craft beer that are drawn in by the look and kind of the identity and the culture of craft beer and craft beer selling, honestly, and brand accounts on Instagram. So that's a really interesting part of the beer culture that I think we can learn a lot from, and try and tap into a little more than maybe we have in the past. We do have obviously posting to Instagram in Untappd today, but you know, what else might we be able to do to bring folks over and fill in a little more of the history or the information or other things, what people think behind the craft beer that they're seeing in Instagram. So I think there's some opportunities there. But I guess TikTok, right? I guess. I don't know. Right. We have to say it. We have to say something about TikTok. I will say TikTok's recommendation engine is the powerhouse behind their success. And it's interesting because, you know, recommendations in beer are also something that is really, really important to either your first experiences or your continuing experience with beer in general and with Untappd. And you know, we do some smarts behind recommendations, what your friends have had, your check-in history, what you've rated things. But there's probably a lot more to grasp there as well, in terms of finding that next craft beer and sharing that next beer with the folks that you know, go to the bar with or check in online with and have a Zoom call. Are people still doing that? Is that still a thing that people are doing, virtual happy hours?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
More or less. I feel like we're all pretty burnt out on on meeting virtually. Where the data shows it. Lots of folks meeting in person these days. So, yeah, it's an interesting world out there.
Yeah,
sometimes scary, sometimes exciting. It was amazing to see what we could do when COVID forced us. And now, to your point, Kyle, I think some of us are tired of it. I bump into a stranger at TJ Maxx, and all of a sudden we're best friends just to see a real person. I got a question, not a good tangent, but from Daryl in the Facebook group. He's really active proponent of Untappd and beer, and I like this question. It's a 2-part question, so I'm going to ask it to you both parts at once, and I'll let you decide where you want to go. But what old things did Kyle fight to keep, but maybe had to let go because of the update? And you kind of alluded to that a little bit. And then conversely, what new things are you kind of surprised that worked out so well? Or maybe even if I can expand on that, maybe where are we going? Are we doing TikTok, Instagram stories at Untappd? That might be, hopefully not, but maybe.
Yeah, so it's an interesting way to frame it too, I think, because there were things that I would have loved to put into this first version that we rolled out, but the data just didn't tie it out, right? One of those things I would say is making friends in Untappd is sometimes difficult, right? Where do I search for folks? Are they at the local bar? Are they nearby? Nearby tab, by the way, great way to find like people who are kind of in your area, also interested in checking in. That's on the activity tab, the second one from the left. The thing that we did not bring that is coming soon and is still in development right now are friend name tags. And the friend name tags were introduced as a part of Untappd's 2019 Charlotte Beer Festival. And we developed those in order to make it easier to make friends in person. And when you scan someone else's QR code with their face on the inside, it automatically sends a friend request to that person that you scanned. And so, John, I could show you my QR code. You could scan it through the call that we're having right now, or you could scan it if we were at the bar. And I wouldn't have to search for your name. I wouldn't even have to ask you what your name is. I would just send you a friend request because you look like you're using Untappd. And we could become Untappd friends. And unfortunately, the data, again, over the last year of us being in lockdown, not going out to bars and restaurants as much, or at least, going outside of our regular households, just data didn't tie out to say that this is a feature that folks are actively using right now. And so it's something that we will be building. We are building currently and is going to be in a future version. But for now, we've got a coming soon screen inside of the application. So as much as I really wanted to bring that friend tagging back, it's going to be just a little while longer. Something that I'm surprised worked out so well in this application. I mean, dark mode's the easy answer here, right? Cool. Along with it's something I can tell you for a fact. This is the most frequently requested feature that we ever received ever since 3.0 launched in 2017. This is the thing that folks wanted. And I get it. I 100% get it. You're in a dark brewery, a dark bar. Right. It is, you're 3 beers deep. You don't want to open an application that's blindingly bright in your eyes. And so I'm really glad that we were able to bring this feature and put it at the front of this particular update that we rolled out. The other thing I would say that probably worked out pretty well so far, at least in the feedback I've seen, is the sorting and filtering is a little bit different in this version than it was in the last one. We've added the sorting and filtering options up at the top of the page for those big major categories on the Discover page. Those are a much easier, faster, quicker way of seeing all of the sorting options and selecting one and kind of going from there. So I'm hoping that we can, get some feedback quickly on that, iterate and bring some more value to other parts of the application soon by rolling that out. It should be said too, we had not had an update to this application in 6 months. And so this is just a breath of fresh air to be able to release this, talk about feedback, talk about building more. We've had 2 releases in the last 2 weeks. I'm excited to do another one this week. And so we're moving. This train's going, and you got to get on.
And what's the best way, Kyle, you mentioned feedback. What's the best way for people listening to this podcast if they do want to say, hey, Kyle, I love the dark mode, but the filtering would be better if it were, I don't know, and a 13-point font. What's the best way for them to communicate that to you?
My personal cell phone number is. No, the best way I would say to get in touch really, and the probably the easiest is to reach out to either our support team. You can do so by going to help feedback@untappd.com, or feedback@untappd.com is the email address that goes straight to my email inbox and our product management team over on the Untappd team. So that's really the best way. Emailing feedback@untappd.com.
Perfect.
Can we send pictures to that?
You can send videos, John, so long as the attachments, I think, are less than 20 megabytes. So
got it.
Yeah. Any ideas, issues, feedback, all of that can go over to that address, and either our support team will help you out, or we would really relish the feedback early and often. That's, like I mentioned before, we build this application for the community, and you all are imperative in our continuing success, as well as making sure that your experience at Untappd is a good one.
Cool. That's great. And it's in that similar kind of vein then. So Jared from the Facebook group, he had a question about basically what he was saying was, when will you expand suggestions to coordinate to your preferred ingredient taste based off of previous related brews? So here's kind of like a feedback area from Jared, right to you. So we got it right in the stories, Jared. You're welcome.
It's a great idea. First of all, love the idea. It's interesting when we're talking about data too, because behind the scenes, Untappd at its core is a beer database. It's a place where you can search, find information about beers, but we're only as good. The beer database is only as good as both the information that's provided by brewers, the information that users are gathering as they're checking things in and adding beers to the database, and only as good as our extraordinarily good volunteer team of moderators is on monitoring that information and keeping it clean, concise, and as good as possible. So shout outs to them for the really, really hard work that they do. So in order to get smarter, right? I mentioned TikTok and their recommendations algorithm. In order to get smarter with recommendations, one, you have to have the data. That's the first thing. The second thing is you have to find a correlation in the data to actual meaningful outcomes. And that's a really difficult thing to prove. And it may take longer than you might think. Just because we recommend it doesn't mean you'll like it. And I think we've tried to take that into consideration with our recommendation engine today, which if you scroll down on the Discover page, you'll see kind of recommended beers at the bottom. It's a carousel that you can kind of swipe between, add things to your wish list, or hit the notifications bell and get updates for when that beer is available on a menu nearby you. But that is powered by a bunch of different data points and not ingredients today, because we don't have that ingredients information. And so I think, I'm in agreement. I think one of the easiest things to say here about ingredients and tying them to flavor profiles and folks' preferences is hop selection, right? I'm definitely a mosaic guy. I love mosaic hops. Just for whatever reason, anything single hopped mosaic, I'm all over. Nelson, also all over Nelson.
Yeah.
So anything with that, I think I would probably gravitate towards, and that's not always in the beer name, unfortunately. And so it's a really complex problem. I'll just sum up as, we'd love to be able to do this someday. And I think our moderators would probably love the opportunity to be able to go through and say what hops are in what beers. But today it's not something currently on the roadmap. Great idea, though.
I can appreciate that. And honestly, one of the most candid and honest answers anyone's ever given on a podcast anywhere. So thank you for that, Kyle. Before we get into, Harrison's been warming up a seat. Some might even call it a hot seat. But before we get into there, a little bit more about Kyle, right? Beautiful voice, loves drinking beer. You're one of the original hosts of Drinking Socially. Arguably, Harrison and I wouldn't be here had it not been for you. And now we know Pyramid's apricot wheat beer. Is there an episode that you remember doing in your time at Drinking Socially that was a lot of fun? Maybe give some of our newer listeners a callback to go back and listen to and discover?
Yes. There's definitely one episode that sticks out for me specifically. Let me say two episodes. One, Tim and I played, Tim, the co-founder of Untappd, played a game of, is this a hop name or a villain, a comic book villain? And you needed to, you had to guess which of those was which. And that would probably be, I don't know if there's as much innovation today in hop naming. We've kind of moved all to like experimental names at this point.
C17C, things like that.
So at the moment, maybe not as relevant, but back then when we did that game, it was pretty fun to try and figure out which was which. The other one, in terms of like a standout beer that I had, Umami Monster from Garage Project was one of the beers that we featured on that, and that's brewed with bonito flakes. And when I talking about umami, that was a meal in a glass. That was like drinking cold miso soup with, I don't know, hops in it. Maybe I couldn't even tell, to be honest. It was a really interesting, one of the most interesting beers I've had. So yeah, definitely recommend those two episodes. Couldn't tell you what numbers they are, but they're somewhere in there.
We'll find them. We'll drop them in the show notes so you guys can click on that to check them out if we can. The hop villain one may be harder, but I'm sure we can find Umami Monster. But we'll do our best. But that sounds delicious and a lot of fun, and now makes me want to play more games. Thinking about hops and villains. Ours is not going to be, hopefully, as difficult. Really, it's just you shooting from the hip, Kyle, going with your gut.
Let's go.
Your inner whatever, your inner umami. I don't know if that's a thing. But the name of the game is Hot Seat. It's just a riff off this or that. I'm going to say one thing or the other. Give me your gut reaction. If you have a why, I'll pause and let you lay that on us. But if not, that's fine. Sometimes it's just because, and to dive too deep into the why may, I don't know, unlock unnecessarily counseling or other episodes. We don't have time or the resources to handle. So, but I'll leave that up to you. And we're going to do about, let me see, 12 of them or so. So really,
let's go. Yeah.
Don't think. Go with your gut. All right, and we'll start with some. Wet your whistle. Get ready. Start with some. I don't know. Some simple ones, I guess. So cans or bottles? What do you got?
Cans.
Okay.
Definitely, because I'm also a Coca-Cola soda must be in a can. I do not like the bottle for whatever it's worth. I just don't like bottles.
Fair enough. Perfect. All right. Draft or package?
Draft. I love a good half pint.
Nice. Yes, that's right. The original Flight As You Go, just a bunch of half pints all night. All right. Hoppy or mild?
Mild. I'm really give me a good ESB. I just want something super, super mild. The hop mash I could take or leave these days.
There you go. I love it. I'm with you there. All right, this one's fitting for today's episode. Proper glassware or whatever is nearby.
Straight from the can's probably what I'm going to do most of the time, but glassware, if temperature is important, oftentimes, because I do like to regulate again. Yep. I have a literal temperature gun for trying to see. We're up to also 75 degrees now, so not doing so hot on the beer, but I care a lot about probably the drinking experience. And glassware, take it or leave it. Couldn't care.
Yeah, I hear you. Good. Right. I live once. Straight from the can. That's the best answer. All right. This is also good for tonight. Aged beer or fresh ones?
Fresh. Always fresh. I love just brewed yesterday. Got a crowler actually of a wet hop beer from a local brewery that I couldn't let it sit in my fridge for more than 24 hours. I had to go 32 ounces yesterday because you can't let that just sit, right?
Nope. Nah, wet hops. That's amazing.
You gotta go.
That's right. It's harvest.
Good excuse.
That's right. It's harvest day. As we're recording this for a lot of the hop farms. We had CLS farms on last week, and today's the day.
Yeah.
That probably was pretty fresh and wet. That's awesome. All right. So definitely want to sit on that. All right. This is a good one and may fire up some people in the comments. For music, analog or digital? What say you?
Digital, so long as I can go over like 192. I can't tell the difference between 192 kbps and 256 kbps. So as long as it's constant bit rate higher than 192, we're okay on MP3 digital. The second that you go, I can tell the difference absolutely between 64, 96, 128, like all of those. Very, very easy to tell the difference. But I could not care again less than I do right now about analog, if for the only reason that I actually care a lot about 1980s Japanese city pop, which isn't available on digital on Spotify, and so I do have to definitely import more analog content in order to just get my fix. I just keep collecting. I don't know why, but I just really enjoy that music, and so I do analog where I have to, digital almost entirely the rest of the time.
Wow.
Missed opportunity, Spotify.
Right.
Build out your 80s Japanese city pop collection.
What are you doing?
It's pretty good. It's getting really good, to be honest. Spotify's got some good deals with Sony now, good deals with ones who've passed rights between different holding companies and now found their way somehow through a like CD subreddit somewhere, and now it's on Spotify. I'm unsure, but
right,
it's there now.
The magic of back channels. I love it. All right, so this is a similar question on the tech side of things, and I think I know the answer to this, but I love being wrong. I do it every day, so I have to love it. All right, I have 5 laptops, or I have a Timex watch, and I like to disconnect. Where are you? Are you deeper in you're probably right. We think you might be being a VP of product in the digital world all the time, or is that Timex on the beach? Really
no, definitely the former. It is the 5 different laptops, multiple devices ringing at once. I have 3 monitors in front of me right now, so yeah, I'm definitely on the tech side. Unfortunately, no watch.
That's right. Watch list. There you go. That weighs you down. Time's the mind killer or something.
I don't need to know that. My whole life's scheduled anyway.
That's right. Smart. Right. I just wait for my alerts to tell me what to do.
Right.
Okay. This is a little more open-ended. So TV, what show are you watching right now, if any?
Oh gosh. What was the last show I watched?
Or even in the past 18 months, I've been doing a lot of binging. Like the world has. Anything.
Very seriously, I cannot remember the last show I watched. I think probably it would have been the first 3 or 4 episodes of Catch 22.
Okay. Oh yeah, right.
I think that's all I've watched. I am definitely more of a movie buff. Letterboxd, they also don't like ease as much as we don't like ease. They are a great service for finding movies, checking into movies, saying when you watched it, what you rated it. It's basically Untappd for movies. So one of my favorite apps at the moment is definitely Letterboxd. And so I'm watching movies right now. It's spooky season. Got to watch those scary movies.
Here we go. That's the next question. Movies. What should we all watch this weekend, Kyle? Tell us.
I would say probably The Abyss.
Yes.
Seeing the scene where, again, content warning for like animal abuse if that's not your thing. I did read an article.
If that's not your thing.
No. I did read an article that the fluid that the rat breathes in the scene where they like are showing you how the breathable fluid, I forget the word that it is, but how it works. The rat was breathing the fluid, which in a 1980s movie, yes, it had to be a practical effect. There was no other way around it. It needed to be a real thing. Go watch that movie. It's very good. Again, if you're claustrophobic, probably not a good movie. If you don't like underwater scenes, probably not a good movie.
Horrible. Yeah.
Yep. But overall, probably one of the biggest surprises of spooky season so far for me.
It's one of the best. That's great. I agree. Haven't seen it. Go check it out. All right. And then breweries, a little more open-ended. So which one do you want to visit when you can visit breweries? What's on your list? John and I would kind of keep a list of places we'll go to, and we can go to things again and take trips. Do you have any? Have you been doing something similar, kind of making a short list?
That's it. So the last brewery trip where I really remember lots of people being was the 2020 Pliny the Younger line in Santa Rosa, California. Stood in line, got my 4-pack of bottles the first year that they ever bottled it, and sent that out east. And that was definitely like one of the better experiences. Again, standing in line for 8 hours, not really a good experience overall, but when you get to have that at the end of it, pretty good. Worth it probably for the most part. The place I would want to visit though is definitely their other location. So I was downtown. I was in downtown Santa Rosa and standing in line there, but their more north location for Russian River. I've seen the pictures. Just looks spectacular. And I feel like that's the place you got to get out to. That part of California also just very beautiful this time of year, not so much given the smoke and the fires and everything else that we're dealing with at the moment. But, all other times of year, February, great time. Good time to get out there. But yeah, it's a really cool spot. And again, wild ales, like that's, the moment you walk into a brewery that does open fermentation and wild ales, like you can smell it. You smell it in the air. It just has that essence, and I just love that. I love being around that.
That's great. I feel like I'm there now. I'm smelling. It certainly smells like I'm there now. This whole room is now that's been taken over by this beer. Hopefully you guys are experiencing something similar. All right, let's finish up with a couple more quick fire ones. So, all right, fishing or golf?
I've been fishing once in my life. I've been golfing more than that. Golf.
All right, perfect.
Because you can bring beer.
Well, you can bring beer to fishing too, but
true.
You can bring a fishing pole.
That's fine. Again, you don't need a reason. If your gut says golf, go with golf. You can't drown playing golf. Well, maybe you can. Depends how much beer you bring. But that's a story of a horse of a different color. Not important. Dogs or cats?
Cats. I have 10.
10.
Let's not unpack that. Email feedback@untappd.
All right, let's do breakfast or dinner.
Oh, breakfast for dinner.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's the win.
Love it. Love it. And then are you cooking or are you ordering takeout for anything? For dinner, breakfast? For breakfast, dinner.
I am cooking. I'm cooking 48-hour beef ribs in my sous vide and then popping them in the oven and eating that. Just kind of mustardy, a little bit of brown sugar, caramelize it up. Yeah.
Wow.
That's definitely what I'm doing.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Me too. We'll be right over. So this maybe answers
Leave
that.
them in the thing, sure.
Right,
Yeah.
just put them near the door, and we won't even bother you. We'll just sneak in and grab the ribs. And all right, so maybe this answers my next question. Then, best thing you've ever eaten?
That's really, really difficult. I'm having a really hard time. The seat is hot.
Usually I'll just ask what the first thing that came to your mind was, and hopefully it's not like a saltine cracker, or it can be peanut butter and jelly. Sometimes that's the truth.
Right. It's the Friday French toast sticks from 5th grade.
I would probably say, so this again, content warning for animal abuse, foie gras. Which is problematic. I had foie gras nigiri, which is like the rice, the little small thing of rice, and usually it's like raw fish over the top, tuna, salmon, scallop, raw scallop, whatever, with a little bit of wasabi underneath the protein, and then you take the whole thing and you do that. Blowtorched piece of it was a blowtorched piece of liver and on rice, on sushi rice, with a little bit of wasabi underneath. And that foie gras was just melt in your mouth. Incredible. Had that at Uchi in Houston, in Texas. That was probably the single best bite I've ever had.
Boom.
There's a Spanish farmer that found a way to convince geese to overeat naturally, effectively by picking on them and taking them away from their mother. So I don't know if that's better than the foie gras we usually eat, but we're getting there. We're
working on it.
Yeah. I've been in California so long. I've seen the foie gras ban. I've seen the foie gras come back. I've seen the foie gras be banned again. So it's in the in the food scene, it seems to be somewhat divisive. And so, yeah, it can be.
You eat it.
I don't love the idea of it. Again, the flavor, stellar, like galactic flavors, just over the moon. So, but I know that it's bad. I know that it's a bad thing.
Well, let's finish with something that's universally good. The best beer you remember having.
This is my usual go-to. This was on a beach on a small island 1,000 kilometers south of Tokyo. And I was there in April of 2018. And this island is very small, but you have to take a public transit bus to get there. And I would say there's maybe 1,000-ish people on the entire island. And it's not a tourist destination really at all. And so when you go anywhere on this island, the beaches, just sandy, clean, beautiful beaches, tropical weather, completely empty. End to end, half a mile in either direction, not a single soul. I walked to in town in the area where before I got on the bus, walked to a vending machine, which in Japan can have beer in it. And so I picked up a can of a Tokyo branded craft beer and got on the bus, headed to the beach, and cracked open that beer on the beach with not a single soul there. Beautiful weather, totally sunny, and was able to still check in. They good enough signal to check in. So check that in. Again, just a magical place to have a beer. I am transported back there immediately just thinking about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Me too. I've never been, but I feel like it. I feel like I was there.
You were there with me, Harrison. I don't even remember. It was it was a weird time.
That's right. That was the only other person. Kyle?
Any verified venues nearby?
No, not a single one, unfortunately. Yeah, we actually, the funny part about that trip as well was Untappd had just been written about in a Japanese craft beer journal, like a paper sort of zine. And I was thumbing through it at the beer inn in Hokkaido and found like, hey, there's this article, not any English in it except for in the screenshot of obviously the application. And it was talking about how Untappd is kind of changing a little bit about the beer culture in Japan and how, rating beers and finding out more about, especially American craft beers, is changing the beer scene there, because there are folks now brewing in the country and learning about American craft beer and trying to kind of like cater that towards that market. It's really interesting. Obviously their own spin on a lot of different things, but it was an interesting article.
Wow. Cool.
Google translates your friend in that case, right? Like as much as possible on something printed like that.
Holy cow. All right. Well, that was it, Kyle. That was such an amazing answer. I feel like it took us all over the world there and all over your history and the past, a little bit of the future. And now I want breakfast for dinner and to watch The Abyss and drink wet hop IPAs.
What do I have to do to live with you for a year?
That's right. Be an interesting Untappd giveaway. No,
I'd love to have you guys out. Yeah, that'd be great. You got to come to California.
That's
okay.
It. Yep. Well,
it's the easiest sell. Yeah.
That's exactly
walking. There's a lot of good places to drink in California too, Kyle. And before we let you go, we usually like to feature a verified venue on every episode of Drinking Socially now. And usually we'll try and feature a place that has one of the beers that we're drinking on the menu. But since we drank so many today, well, I only drank one, but we drank 3 collectively. I want to ask you, Kyle, where's if we're coming out in California, what's a verified venue that you would want us to visit?
If you are anywhere near me, which is kind of middle of nowhere, but one of my favorite places right now was actually the place where I leveled up. You don't know Brett the last time. And so I feel like it's relevant. This place is called Poor Decisions Tap Room in Hollister, California. They've got a local badge, so you can level that one up to level 100. But it's kind of a arcade bar and 90s themed nostalgia tap room. The place is just cool as heck. Ricky Martin on the TV. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game in the back. It's a really cool place. They have across from, and they just opened this up recently, across from all like the stacks of arcade cabinets that they have a digital menu, one of our Untappd digital menus right behind them with tap handles that are made of Lego. Which is just super cool as well. It's like, again, dripping in 90s nostalgia. And for me, I don't mean to date both of you, but that was my childhood. And so that's like really like what I latch on to. And I love this place. Again, you'll find them featured on some of the screenshots. It is probably the closest verified venue to me. So you'll find it in the screenshots for 4.0. You'll see it kind of in some of the marketing materials that we're putting out, since I have a hand in those. And so, yeah, it's plus you can't go wrong with a name like Poor Pour Decisions Tap Room. It's I every time I see it and put it on my check-ins, I always get a chuckle from a couple of folks on there. So it's good. That
is a great name.
Great puns are never underappreciated, or appreciated enough, I should say, on this podcast. True. And it makes me beg to ask, maybe for the director's cut of this podcast, Kyle, as a child of the 90s, and I think Harrison and I would fall into there. I mean, maybe even a child of time for me, but
best man.
Video game experience you had in the 90s, or maybe afterward, but a video game from the 90s.
Definitely so this was the advent of the portable video game console. So like Game Boy was definitely one of the things that like was formative for me at that point. Tetris especially was one of those things. But I would say the thing that really made video games stick for me was the arcade racer Stunt FX on Super Nintendo. It was it was like a color 3D frame rate was like 5 frames a second. So looking back on it today is just, it's incredible what your brain like can interpret as just, wow, these graphics, right. Are you kidding? There's never going to be anything better than this. These are the best graphics I've ever seen. It's so lifelike. These 5 polygons that make up this car is a car. I can't believe it. But that game was definitely formative in terms of like the kinds of games that I'm into these days. So that's Super Nintendo was just like that aesthetic. More of that, please.
Yeah, you too there. I remember playing, I think it was Super Mario Brothers 3 when you get the raccoon hat that made you fly. Super Nintendo.
There we go.
Time. Great console. The glory days. If only I had enough time to play video games all Saturday morning.
You can grab a 6-pack of your favorite beer and replay Final Fantasy 3. It's Sunday someday. So
Sunday.
That's right.
Sunday. Cool. Wow. Well, this has been a blast, Kyle. I want to thank you again for sharing these insights about Untappd 4.0. We're here. Everybody check it out if you haven't yet. If people at home want to follow you on Untappd, Kyle, do you want to share your handle? Is that public knowledge?
Yeah, it is. I feel like I'll accept all friends on Untappd. You can follow me, Kyle Roderick, on Untappd. I'm also Hop Burps on Twitter if you want to follow me there.
Yes.
I tend to just do both of those things often when having beer, so it's just feels appropriate. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This has been great. Love chatting with you. Sorry we couldn't do this in person, but someday I'll be back out to the offices and I'll get to see both of you. So I'm excited.
Yes, and hopefully you'll bring some Russian River with you. Won't hold you to it. I understand checking bags can be difficult, but yeah, we'll look forward to that. Absolutely, that'll happen, and we'll do another podcast then and catch up and talk about the '90s and what we're eating and drinking and
meat. Yep,
meat,
definitely.
meat.
Yeah, I'm saying, look, if we pivot this podcast to just becoming like a Super Nintendo Twitch channel, like I get it that like we just have to. We'll find a way to do it, but be a good time. Beers and Nintendo.
Sounds like permission if I've ever heard it.
We'll beers and gears. I don't know. We're just spitballing. I love it. But cool. Thanks again, Kyle. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
All right. So I feel like we may, John, have some time for best beers of the week.
Yeah, I think I'm just thinking about Kyle and his meat, but I think we can squeeze in the best beer of the week that I remember having last week. Comes from New Anthem. It was a Wilmington-esque recollection that I went through, and I was actually catching up on all the check-ins. This last month, I was really busy, so I would just take a picture of the beers I was drinking and save them. Initially, it was going to be like a check-in from last night, and then it just evolved into a check-in from last week. The one that rings the loudest in my memory is I bought us tickets from New Anthem, and I actually got it from you, Harrison. And it was the best part about it. New Anthem brings me the haze bombs that I love and crave and think about and relish. But this was a pale ale, and it was just like it was manufactured perfectly. The hops were in there, but they weren't overpowering. And as soon as I finished it, I wanted another. And that doesn't happen to me very often in today's craft beer world, where I want another beer. So I bought us tickets from New Anthem. That was great. What about you, Harrison?
Yeah, I was impressed with the lighter side of things and kept the year of the lager going strong, which we need to formally revisit on the show again, which we will soon. But I had Bright from Burial, which is an Italian-style Pilsner. I think it's a totally new offering from them, or at least, it's just was released. I literally pulled it off the truck at Hey Beer, one of the local bottle shops here, when they pulled up with it. Delicious. It's a crisp, kind of light cracker. It's like the lightest cracker ever. Like if you could make a paper airplane out of crackers and fly that through an igloo and then drink it, it was that. in a glass. That makes sense, right? But it was very light. It was super crisp. And I poured it and then happened to find Gladiator on TV. And I thought, well, an Italian style Pilsner, Gladiator, we're going back to ancient Greece, Rome, one of those. Not important. It made sense.
We'll claim those.
Yeah.
We'll claim that.
It all lined up for me that night, but really delicious. And one of those beers where I had to slow down and not chug it instantly because I wanted to, but it's just so well made. It's tough to, you don't think Pilsner, I'll sit with this for an hour and a half and see what it does. This one I could have, though. It was a lot happening that was, on that cracker side of things that kind of changed to like a light fruity notes and then a little bit of grass happening and then more cracker and then just like this kind of weird bubbly crispness that it evolved as I drank it, which I don't do that. I don't do it anyway much in Pilsner. So happy to take the time and enjoy that one.
And speaking of happy, you know what makes me happy, Harrison?
Yes, but go ahead. I'm not going to say it in case I'm wrong and embarrass you, but go ahead. What do you mean, John?
I was going to say prosciutto igloos, but also it makes me happy when we see you guys follow us on Twitter, on Instagram. Check out Untappd, especially on social media. It's where you're going to get to see or even get a heads up on some of the new features that Kyle was hinting at when those are released. When and what's going on in San Diego at the upcoming Beer Fest in October. So check out Untappd on Twitter, Instagram, or make sure you're keeping up with me and Harrison at podcast.untappd.com because in 7 days, we're going to a rock and roll concert.
Well, John, I mean, we've got hard rock and we've got soft rock. Where's the mild rock? Maybe it's nowhere. Maybe that's best. But next week, we're going to get our mild on and maybe find out.
I guess until then,
cheers.